What are you waiting for? Join us on our journey and let's go on an adventure together.
This is Homie and the Dude, the Father and Son podcast, and today is another episode of D&D Diaries. Today, we're talking about running your first Battle Royale one-shot and how I ran mine. So basically, after our last episode where we talked about, we ended off our first kind of island encounter and we left the island and our players kind of moved on. We've talked about how we were scared to basically build this big city, and that's why we created this first island. So then after them leaving this first island, they kind of were on a plot line leading them towards this big city. Still panicked, still nervous about making this big city, we actually decided to avoid it again, and we wanted to we assumed because they were flying quite a long distance through floating islands, which is what our homebrew setting is, as they're traveling quite a long way on an airship, we thought it'd be fun for them to encounter some of these islands along the way, or have some sort of encounter before they reached the city that we were kind of putting off building.
It wasn't procrastination.
It was a little bit of procrastination.
It was more like fear. I do think it was just like we don't know how to do this.
Yeah,
we just want to buy some time. We weren't like kicking back. Chilling.
No, not at all. No. But so we basically decided that we were either going to run a encounter where the players went to an island and they were having some sort of festival, and that festival involved the players getting involved with a race that was happening on the island, like an airship race, either like that or like a wingsuit, like a squirrel suit race, that kind of thing, around the floating island. But we decided not to go with that because the dynamics of working out a race and flight and stuff wasn't something that we were also kind of prepared to do. So the other option that we had kind of for an encounter before they got to the city was a pirate ambush, which we will be talking about in the next episode because we did run the encounter.
But not just yet.
Not just yet. However, what we decided to do was to give ourselves a bit of time to decide which one we wanted to do. We said, cool, the session's kind of coming up and we don't have anything prepared, so let's just run a Battle Royale one-shot I didn't actually know that you could do like Battle Royale in tabletop games. Like I kind of, in my head, assumed that it was a genre for like computer games, you know, like Fortnite and PUBG and, you know, things like that. However, I now have done one and it worked really well in D&D, so it definitely works. If you want to try it out, 100% recommend it. But we kind of did it a little bit differently. We had like a little bit of a nice intro, so as the players left the island and they traveled a little bit, I gave you guys a bit of time to interact with each other. It was the first bit of big role play that you guys had to get to know each other's characters and things like that after the chaos that kind of happened at the island before, which was being swept up in this small little plot there, helping the people of the island, and then being asked to escort Ulfur the wizard to the People's Republic, the city that we're kind of not wanting to build yet. So as you're on the airship, I allowed you guys a bit of role play time, and then we basically got into the Battle Royale by I said that everyone went up onto the top of the blimp of their airship. And as they watched the sunset, everyone kind of like drifted off into a sleep and shared like a group dream. It was pretty cool, and everyone kind of enjoyed that little intro to it, and it made it feel like it was more part of the story than just a random like one shot that we're throwing in because we haven't decided which encounter we're writing and we're too nervous to write that city. It felt like this is what we had planned.
Yeah, it was nice as well. It was, you know, I'm just picturing it now, that imagery of just lying on top of the blimp, the sky is up there, all of us are there, we're getting to know each other, there's a bit of banter, there's just a bit of a relaxed feel to it, and then we just, you know, kind of ease off into sleep.
Yeah, some nice downtime activities, and then as you guys kind of like went into sleep, we appeared in this really awesome Battle Royale map, which I'll chuck up on screen for you guys. It was really cool, and we basically had like this Battle Royale. Everyone came at it with different strategies. You were really loud and a bit goofy, as was our tiefling fighter. You guys were kind of being a bit silly, obviously still trying to fight and compete, but you know, doing things to purposefully annoy people in terms of like goofing around, throwing rocks at people, shouting across the map, shit talking, that
Slapping
kind of stuff.
Slapping my ass at one.
Yeah. Shit talking, it was great. And where our halfling rogue and our barbarian sorcerer, who's doing like this Hulk multi-class I made for him, they took it a lot more seriously and were like very much in trying to win this Battle Royale. So it played out really nicely. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of banter, and eventually it came down to just the halfling rogue and the barbarian and the sorcerer. They had managed to kill off the two that were being silly, that were messing around. Yeah, and so what ended up happening was, though, I had placed some magical items in the field as well, so that people could grab like a magical item if they had time or wanted to strategically. And so our halfling rogue grabbed this bow that I had designed that had like a D100 table, and it was kind of designed after Hawkeye from the Avengers arrows, how he has like each arrow does a different kind of like ability. So you roll on the table to see what your arrow does as you kind of loose it. And she rolled on the table and she rolled this beautiful one of my favorites, which is that the arrow, as it's in the air, breaks into segments and then turns into coins. And those coins then hit the person, if you roll to hit and you succeed, they hit the person, dealing 1 point of hit point damage per coin. So I got Ryan, our barbarian who's getting hit with this, to roll how many coins he was going to get hit with. And he rolled 30. So he took 30 points of damage and died from a barrage of coins to the face, which was a pretty funny ending to it all, and it went good.
I would love to say took it like a champion, but he was so bitter.
He was so salty. He was so salty. But it was really good because everyone had a great laugh. We all had a lot of fun. And then I basically ended it by everyone like waking back up, and the bit that I really want to talk about is kind of going that extra mile. Something that I learned from this Battle Royale was that going the extra mile really makes a difference with your players. And what I mean by that is, if you have a spare 5 minutes to do something, or you're like, oh, I could do the simplified version of this, or I could add just that little bit of extra oomph, add that little bit of extra oomph. It's worth it in the long run. And the way that I did that for this was basically I spent a bit of time in Photoshop creating photographs. Photographs don't exist in our setting, so these are super rare items, but I created some photographs of people that meant a lot to these characters. So I had Tom's family. I had his wife and children who had passed away. I had Tracy's husband, the halfling rogue's husband. I had our barbarian. I had his best friend who is in prison.
Yeah.
We had like a bunch of these. I photoshopped a bunch of these photos together, and whoever the winner was going to get a photograph. And so the halfling rogue won. So I gave her her photograph, and it was of her husband. This meant a lot to her character, and not only that, but she also, as a player, really enjoyed it as well, because she had something physical to hold, something to have, and it meant that it just made the game a little bit more immersive. Since then, we've carried that on. We've done a skeleton key puzzle that we actually made physical with like some like keys that you could slot through this like cardboard slot, and I would like grab them to simulate the lock not working, or let it twist in the lock if it was working. We'll show you that stuff when we get to it in the next couple of episodes. But doing that, we've continued that on, and we've given people visas when they've now arrived at the city that we were talking about that we didn't create at this point. We've now created it, and visas are something that happens in the city, so we gave a physical visa to every player. And again, just adding that little bit of extra oomph gave the players that little bit of extra immersion. It means you guys are a little bit more invested. Someone can, interact with something and hold something in their hands. It allows you guys to just, I guess, get into it a little bit more and enjoy the moment a little bit more as well. So with the intro and the outro to the Battle Royale, it felt more like a normal session as opposed to just a random Battle Royale one-shot.
Well, yeah, and the outro was really nice as well. There was a nice touch in that the photograph that you created that was presented to the halfling, she woke up with the next morning on top of the blimp. So there was this question of like, did we actually have the Battle Royale or didn't we? There was there was that Inception sort of feel to it, a dream within a dream type thing, and that was a really nice touch. Which then she now still has that photo on her
inventory as a character.
In her inventory, yeah. So that's really cool. I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I think so. I guess the big thing to take away from this is that doing a battle royale, or even just throwing in a one-shot because you need a bit of extra time to work on something, or build an encounter a bit further, or continue building a part of your world, and that's what we did. We used this as like a placeholder so we could decide what encounter we wanted to do on the way to the city, and also begin working on the city, which we also did during this time while we kind of ran this battle royale. And
you can set it up in different ways, right? We just set ours up through a dream, sort of a collective dream that everyone then appeared in the Battle Royale. But I guess there's different ways to...
There's loads of different ways to, and not to mention it doesn't have to be a Battle Royale. You could do, we've talked about just social encounters, of just like we talked about, because we're in floating islands, this old couple who kind of drift around in a hot air balloon. Just kind of whoever they encounter, they kind of bring them in for dinner. And like that's a fun, one-shot encounter that you can do where there's this really, interesting interaction that you have. So if you are needing like a placeholder, or you've got a lot of work to do and you don't feel like you can cram it all in before the session, use like a little placeholder one-shot. It really does help you give yourself that time, but it also means that your players still get a session, you still get a rep as a dungeon master, and it means that everyone's still getting the fun of doing it regularly. But it was really, really fun, and again, aside from, use these one-shots as ways for you to create more, or like give yourself some time as a DM, but also go that extra mile, guys. When you are making a puzzle, think about how you can make it a physical puzzle if you guys are in person, that the players can interact with, hold and twist and, maneuver. If there is something that, is being given out to the players, put it under their chair, give it to them during the game, present them with something to hold and to have, and, to paperclip to their character sheet or something like that. It will make a world of difference. Now, obviously,
or to their token.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, if they are doing it online, for example, it's they get the a little folder full of the digital handouts that you've sent them, kind of thing. But that will still mean a lot to them because they will have their own folder of digital handouts that belong specifically to their character. So go that extra mile, spend that little bit of extra time, create that bit. It immersifies. Is that a word? Immerses your players more? I don't know.
There's another point that I think is valuable, which we didn't really think about. We put it in there from our perspective. It was really helpful to us to just buy the time so that we could continue on with our developing the city. the byproduct of it was the actual players really benefited from, having another situation, another environment to interact with, to battle against.
A combat-heavy situation where you're not fighting NPCs, but you're fighting players that are strategizing against you and know you because you guys have worked together and stuff. So you're trying to play to each other's faults and each other's weaknesses and stuff like that. As opposed to an enemy who you've never met before, you may have just rocked up upon, and you don't know much about.
So yeah, huge, we didn't even think about that, but coming away from that, I think the players really appreciated it, and just having just another encounter, completely different circumstances to deepen that relationship between the players, whether it's, killing each other or, making fun of each other or whatever. It's just another angle to how they interact with each other.
100%. So again, guys, we were nervous about creating a city and working on this next encounter. Not so nervous for working on the next encounter between where we were in the city, but still hadn't decided. So, we are still learning at this point, and we were still kind of rocking forward and still super nervous, and that's okay. We were still kind of finding our feet. We're a lot more confident with our creation now, and we've built the city, and it's flourishing and is amazing, and we look forward to telling you about it in future episodes. But next episode, we talk about the pirate ambush from the dreaded Pirate King Zodiac. And it was a really awesome session, and I'm really excited to tell you all about our pirate ambush that we ran for the players in the next episode. We hope this episode about running your own Battle Royale helped you out and gave you some ideas. Guys, thank you so much for watching D&D Diaries. This has been Homie and the Dude, the Father and Son podcast and gaming network. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
We're chugging through. We're loving doing this stuff for you guys. If you want to support us, if you want to make sure that we can keep getting, better quality set, better quality lights, make the filming better.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Bigger batteries for the camera.
Yes!
All that kind of stuff. You can do that by just liking, following the page, and subscribing to the YouTube channel. That is what really makes a difference to us.